so we're going to jump into mindset, self-talk, response to errors, the way your brain thinks about things, the way you talk to your brain when you think about things, and the way you react to things with the thinking of your brain. All good. Okay, so we have the starter activity. If you could quickly partner up and take a couple minutes to try and fill in the blanks, and then we'll all get back together and talk about what we think those words are.
So this is tying in what they would have done a week ago. So you just worked on, these are all ideas that you just worked on this morning, but when you're facilitating this, they'll have done it a week ago. So it's a way to bring all those ideas back.
Okay, clap once if you can hear me. Okay. Let's see. Who had the answer for number 1? Yes.
Given?
So we know that intelligence is not given at birth, but rather each and every one of us has. Yes. Who is number 2?
Strengthen.
Has the ability to strengthen our intelligence. Yes. It is much like strengthening a muscle. We become smarter with. Yes.
Practice?
Yes. We create our own. Yes.
Pathways?
Yes.
Paths.
In our brains by our own choices. We control how our brain learns and can unlearn by reinforcing or not pathways we use. Brain research says that we can do this with any learning task and our. Yes.
Self-talk.
Yes. Huzzah! Okay, so this would be a time where we would review the opportunity of the week from last week, but since that was half an hour ago, we'll just move on. The counting challenge. Okay, here's how the challenge works. So you have to go between partner and yourself, and the goal is to count to 3. So I would say 1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3.
Okay. That's the first step of the challenge.
So when you make a mistake, the idea is you're supposed to yell a little bit and wave your arms around, just sort of recognize and appreciate that you made a mistake. Instead of being no, mistakes are bad, we don't talk about those. It's sort of bring your attention to them and celebrating them so that you can understand this happened and now I'm moving on from it and I'm continuing and I'm celebrating that this just happened and I'm still moving forward. Stand up. Then we have to make a mistake. Yay, we're making a mistake.
I suck.
This is
Okay.
Good one.
So there's another part to this activity. There are actually 2 more parts. So the next challenge that you can integrate into this activity is adding a clap.
Right, so instead of saying 2 this time, you're going to clap. So for the people who were clapping before as you went, this is going to get a little bit difficult. So it's going to look like this.
1, 3.
1, 3.
1, 3.
But faster and better. Okay, so stand back up and try. Okay, ready?
There's another part. Don't sit down. Things are still happening. Okay. So the final part of this is that so you're clapping on 2, and when you instead of saying 1, you're gonna stomp. So that would look like 3.
3.
3. That's what that looks like. Okay, go. Okay, so now everyone can take a seat. What was some of the self-talk you were having as you began to work through this activity?
Take a deep breath, stay calm. Yeah, because we're getting very pumped up.
Yeah, that sounds like a good way to take a moment to reflect on where you're at. Who else had a thought? Yes.
I would clap when the other person was supposed to clap, and then I'd clap again for 3.
Yes. Yeah.
We were going so slow, we would like forget whose turn it is. So like we would just do the same thing in like the same time, and then we would have to start over.
So we have these repeating patterns of struggle, but we also had this repeating pattern of like jumping out and embracing the mistakes, because there's something which we're inevitably going to encounter.
This really gets into the response to error, which is a little bit of what we're looking at this week. So specifically, we're working on growth and fixed mindsets, and how this connects to learning, and then again, particularly focusing on our response to making mistakes. Mindsets are essentially how we look at the world. It's sort of what you think about like human ability and how people interact with the world, and so it affects your learning, it affects the way you act, the way you think, the way you speak to people. So these are really, really important to understand, because once you understand sort of like the lenses through which people see the world, you understand why people think and act the way they do. So this also relates to our self-talk. You know, if we're, we'll talk about growth and fixed mindset. If you're saying something like, I don't know how to do this now, so I never will, that's a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is the idea that intelligence and talent is fixed at birth, right? So like you're born smart or you're not. And there are always going to be like smart kids, and then there are some not smart kids, right? And that's just like the way the world works. A growth mindset is the idea that intelligence and talent and skill are things that you develop and that you grow, and that you can always change. So this relates to neuroplasticity. It's this idea that like you have some control over your own ability and your own learning, because you can sort of say, I'm not like a math person or an English person, or just like I'm not smart. It's that you're working hard and you're paying attention to your mistakes and really thinking about how you learn and how you can grow and develop. We're going to dive into this a little bit with something called the mindset matching game. And so what this is this is going to be getting you to think about how a mindset will affect the way that you see specific issues in school. Or out of school, but these are more specifically in school. So you're each going to get a packet like this, and how many people was it?
2. 1 for every 2.
Okay, so you're going to be partnered up. So in your packet, there are these 2 titles, right? So one says growth mindset belief and one says fixed mindset belief. So you're going to line it up in 2 columns. So here's an example. This says, I have nothing to lose and everything to gain if I just keep trying to figure a problem out. Setbacks and challenges are keys to learning. So that's an example of something that someone might think, right? And so you put that in the growth mindset column because it aligns with that belief. So what you're doing is you're taking all of these different ideas, these ways of seeing the world, and you're deciding, are these part of a fixed mindset or are these part of a growth mindset? Right? So the idea of this is that you'll understand how fixed and growth mindsets actually apply to your life and how they affect how people see the world and learning. So take a few minutes to do this with your partner and try to organize these into columns. And if you have any questions or if anything's unclear, feel free to ask us or call us over. If you need a reminder, these are the definitions up here.
I don't know what this means.
You've got this mouse.
So would that be growth mindset or fixed mindset? If you say that's okay, it doesn't mean I'm not smart.
Here in session 2.
Clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. All right. So tying back to this idea of growth and fixed mindset. So these are sort of some themes that should have been coming up in this activity. So fixed mindset, you sort of avoid challenges as opposed to embracing them. In a growth mindset, you give up when faced with obstacles instead of persisting. You see that like if you have to put an effort, it must mean like there's no point, you're just not good at it, as opposed to it's a process, you need to work hard. Criticism is something you ignore because it means that you're not good enough and you'll never get it, as opposed to criticism is something you're welcome because it helps you get better, it helps you understand where you need to grow. And then you feel threatened by the success of others because you base your own worth off of what they do, and you feel that only some people can succeed, as opposed to celebrating the success of others and being inspired by it. All right, and it's also really important to remember when we talk about this. So obviously we talk about a growth mindset as sort of like better than a fixed mindset, And the reason we do that, like when you understand and when you have a growth mindset, you're so much more open to problems and so much more able to work through problems that you can succeed when faced with obstacles as opposed to just shutting down. But we don't want to put any judgment on having a fixed mindset. So everyone does in some situations. So like I've been doing this and teaching this for a couple of years and I still find myself having a fixed mindset in situations. So it's really important not to say, oh my God, that's terrible, I shouldn't be doing that. But to say, okay, so I recognize that I'm having a fixed mindset right now. And now that I recognize that, I need to try to change my behavior and my self-talk and move forward. All right, what you're going to be doing right now is looking at these and thinking about how they relate to your personal mindset and how you approach obstacles and how you think and act in different situations, right? So think about your own tendencies. What are some situations where you have a growth mindset and you align with the growth mindset column? And what are some situations where you maybe have a fixed mindset and need to work on that? So try to relate this to your own life and mindset. So have a discussion with someone next to you about how you learn and maybe when you have a growth mindset and when you have a fixed mindset.
When it comes to grades.
Yeah, I kind of just passed. I want to do
On page 5 of your participant packet, with this infographic, we're just going to take a couple minutes to have you underline a phrase or a sentence or just a particular word which stands out to you. So just read through that, and then we're going to get back together and popcorn around about what stood out. Okay, so let's popcorn around a little bit about who underlined what and what you underlined and why. So who would like to say what stuck out to them first?
I think that the title kind of like stuck out to me. It's like your brain is built to learn. Like it's like made. It's like for me, it's like it's made to have you learn things. So don't ever think that you like can't learn something.
I like you said about it being built to learn, because it's sort of this idea, instead of like wrestling with your brain, like why aren't I smart enough to do this? It's like, my brain is built to do this. Like I can do this if I just like think about it in a really intentional way.
Yes.
Anyone can create new pathways.
Yes. Anyone from over here? Yeah.
Sometimes learning new things is easy and sometimes it's hard, but the same process is happening either way. It's like, so people can like learn in different ways, but sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard to different people.
And sort of on that note, one thing to note about this activity is that when we just did it right now, we sort of like made the assumption that this was like reading that you could all handle and process in a pretty small amount of time. So some of you will be working with some different age ranges and different ability ranges. So this is something that you might want to have a conversation with your co-facilitators and with the teachers you're working with about do we want to have them read it silently and assume that they're all doing this okay? Or do we want to maybe set up a process where we read it out loud, or everybody goes around and reads a line, or we read popcorn read a line, something just so that like you're being really aware of everyone's ability level and making sure that this is something that everyone can do and get the most out of.
Okay. Also in your participant packets, there is a self-talk grid that has some of the translations between positive self-talk, from negative self-talk to positive self-talk, and some of them are blank. So, yeah, partner up with someone nearby and take a couple minutes to try and fill in those blank positive self-talk translations.
So rewrite them. So from the negative fixed mindset self-talk to the growth mindset, the more like positive progressive self-talk. I can do it.
Okay, so who wants to say some of what they filled in, starting on the top one? I don't think I can do it as the fixed mindset version. What is the growth mindset version? The rewritten script. Yeah.
I can't do it yet.
Yes. Yes. How about if I was smarter, I could have done?
I am smart and I can do it.
Yeah. Other people should have done their part. Yeah.
We'll all work harder next time.
That's a good way to unite the cause. Yeah. Did anyone else have any like particularly different answers that they wanted to fill in? Okay, yes.
I should focus on my part and then help everybody else complete theirs.
Yeah, that's a good way to embrace individual responsibility. And did you have something?
I just said as long as I do my best, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Oh, I never do anything right. What's the growth mindset version? Yeah.
Try and try again.
Yeah.
We're gonna move on. James has to go now because he has a soccer playoff game today. So everyone wish James luck. Okay. Clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. Clap 3 times if you can hear me. Okay, cool. We're going to be moving forward and watching this short video next.
Dismissed from drama school with a note that read, "Wasting her time. She's too shy to put her best foot forward." Turned down by the Decca Recording Company, who said, "We don't like their sound and guitar music is on the way out." A failed soldier, farmer, and
So this is, again, just keeping in mind that same idea of growth and fixed mindset and seeing failure as a way to move forward, sort of as something that helps you learn, like you said, and that helps you sort of see where you went wrong and where you can make better and more constructive choices next time. So on the same vein of working with mindsets, we have posters set up around the room. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take a few minutes to go around and read them and absorb them and find the one that you think really speaks to you the most, that you really understand or that maybe intrigued you or you had a really serious question about, and then you're going to stay at that poster. So once everyone's done that and you sort of have these groups forming, start talking in those groups about why you chose that poster. What about what it said stood out to you? So if you could all get up and start moving around and reading these posters around. Start talking about why you chose that Okay, so everyone really quickly identify someone in your group who's going to speak out and share what you talked about with the rest of the group. Okay, what about this group?
We thought this poster kind of represented the fact that learning can get difficult at times, but then it's also somehow easy at some times, and that some of your brain kind of wants to stop and procrastinate on some of the work that you have to do, but then other parts of your brain are like, no, you have to finish this now.
And it's sort of like it's switching it from like something that just happens to you to like it's a conscious, it's an active choice. It's like your choice in deciding how you're going to be approaching a problem and persisting with it. Thank you. Okay, what about this next group?
It always seems impossible until it's done. We like this one because I don't know, if someone has never done something, it might seem impossible to you. But once they do it, then it kind of just makes more sense.
It takes a really big leap of faith to believe in things when you don't have any example of them already haven't been done, right? So you have to like really have a strong belief and have persistence to keep going even though there are obviously obstacles. Thank you. Okay, and then the actual last group.
Changing your mindset changes everything.
And one thing that my baseball coach says to me all the time is that if you don't have the right mindset, I'm not going to play you, because if you're just out there thinking like, okay, we're losing, we can't come back, this is not going to end well, and just stop trying. And if you have that mindset, then there's no point in playing, because you're not really trying as much as the other team or the rest of your team actually wants to win. So changing your mindset changes the game and changes it.
And it's like having that mindset when things are hard, right? So like when it's something that comes really easily to you or something that you're already succeeding at, it's really easy to have a growth mindset because everything seems easy. Of course you can do this. But like when you're playing and you're down, it's much harder to be like, okay, I have, like, to sort of remind yourself, I have to have this mindset if I want to be able to actually do anything. Okay. Great, thank you. Okay, you could all sit down and then we'll keep going. Okay, so this is just to wrap up what we talked about in this session. So again, when you're doing this, it'll be sort of a whole week's worth of work and of thinking about it. So we all have both growth and fixed mindsets, and they're triggered by learning challenges. So in different situations, you might have a different mindset. Making mistakes is what triggers our mindset. So when things that are difficult happen, that's when our mindsets kick in, and that's when they make a difference. Like we were talking before about how, like, if you're playing a game and you're down, that's when it matters. That's when you can sort of tell it's like your response to error. And then if we are able to shift our mindsets, if we listen to our self-talk, and so we become aware of that, and then we recognize it, we rewrite it, and then we practice that rewritten version. So we practice saying, I can't do it yet, until that becomes the new pathway. Okay, and so the opportunity for this week would be sort of continue on last week, which is about recognizing and noticing that self-talk. But this week, we're also going to be adding the fixing growth mindset part. So now that you've learned about that, it's sort of incorporating that. So looking at that self-talk and saying, where does this fall in terms of growth and fixed mindset? And then try to do something that may be a little bit difficult and a little bit hard. And then really, really pay attention to that self-talk and that mindset. And work to see where you have a fixed mindset and recognize that so you can change it. And when you actually do this, you'll probably have less time and it'll be on a much more rigid schedule. And so what that'll mean is that you'll probably have to be more strict in timing things, and that also might not be a bad idea to sort of run it through before with your co-facilitators and look at your timing, and look at making some choices about, am I able to do all of these things effectively in this time? Do I need to maybe remove some of these activities so that I can do everything with a little bit more depth? So this is something that you should be thinking about with your teachers and co-facilitators for when you do this.